Okay, so TEEEC paragraphs. Let me tell you a secret. TEEEC paragraphs are actually really easy to do. That's because those letters, T, triple E, C, give you a formula. And all you have to do is go step by step, follow that formula, and you'll write a TEEEC paragraph. So you know what the letters T, triple E stand for because I've told you lots of times in the past, and it's written earlier in this PowerPoint. I've written a example for you to have a look at. That's on the previous slide. I'm going to go through that example now and just explain how each of those different sentences work and why they're so important. So I've got my paragraph here that I've written, and my first sentence is my T sentence, which is a topic sentence. So the topic sentence has to let the reader know what the rest of your paragraph is going to be about. So my topic sentence is, within his play, Shakespeare has explored what problems arise when trust is lost within a friendship. So the reader knows that that paragraph is going to be about what happens when trust is lost in a friendship. It's not going to be about anything else. It's not going to be about wanting power too much. It's not going to be about not being kind. It's only going to be about when trust is lost in a friendship. The second sentence is the E for expand, and that is expanding on that idea. And it gives you that chance to let the reader know exactly what part of the play you're talking about for this particular point. So in my introduction, I had already said that I was going to write about the relationship between Hermia and Helena and how they lose trust in their friendship. And so my expanding sentence is, when Helena believes that Hermia is playing a trick on her, she loses trust in her friend, and this causes her to be extremely hurt, and she begins to act angrily towards her. So I'm explaining a little bit more about that idea of what happens when trust is lost in a friendship in the context of the play and these two characters. The next E stands for example. When we are looking at a print text, like a short story or a novel, or as is in this case a play, your example is usually going to be a direct quote from the text. That's what you're going to use for your essay for this assessment task, a direct quote from the text. So what I had to do was I had to look through the play and I had to find a quote that really backed up what I was saying in my topic sentence. And the one that I found is from Helena, and she says, "Have you conspired, have you with these contrived, to bait me with this foul derision? Is all the counsel that we two have shared, the sisters' vows, the hours that we have spent, are we all forgot?" And so there's my example. I just put that in as it is. I then need to do my final E in those three E's, which is evaluate. And when you evaluate, that means that you tell the marker what technique has been used by the composer and what the effect of that technique is. Now, here's a quick hint. When you go to find your quote, make sure you find a quote that has got a technique that you can recognize. Because if you've written down a quote and there's no technique in there that you can recognize, then you can't do this third E. You can't really evaluate it very well. So you're better off looking for a quote that you can see a technique in. That makes this next bit really easy. So I noticed in that quote that there were two rhetorical questions. So that's the technique I'm identifying. So my evaluation sentence sounds like this. Helena's repeated use of rhetorical questions highlights her anguish over the trust that she has lost in her friend. So I've given the marker everything that I've needed to so far. I've said what my point is. I've said what quote, or I've given what quote backs up what I've said. And then I've said how the composer creates meaning, how does the composer create meaning through the use of techniques. So that leaves us with the final sentence of your TEEEC paragraph, and that is the C, which is for concluding. You need a sentence that concludes the paragraph, that draws back to the overall question and thesis that you are writing about in the essay, and it backs up what you've said throughout that body paragraph. So my concluding sentence says, this loss of trust creates ongoing problems between the two characters, as neither can believe what the other is saying, and a physical fight occurs, highlighting the impact that personal relationships have on a character's actions. So it's almost like I'm saying, so what? And my so what is that it has an impact on the character's actions, which is what I said at the beginning of my introduction. Now, one thing that's really important for you to notice, nowhere in that paragraph have I been retelling the story. And sometimes students make the mistake when they start writing essays of just retelling the story and not doing any analysing. It's not necessary to retell the story at all. Remember that the person who's reading your essay is a marker, and that marker has set the question for you. They know the text really well. I know the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream. You don't need to retell it to me. So I didn't need to put in there Helena and Hermia have been friends for many years, and Hermia was in love with Lysander, and Demetrius was in love with Helena, but Helena blah, 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 blah. So you can see how I could rabbit on and on and on for ages about what happened in the story, but that's completely unnecessary, and it will actually make your mark quite low if you do that. Don't tell the story of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Just make sure that the reader just gets the little bit of information that they need to know what part of the play you're going to be analysing, but you don't need to retell the story. Now I want you to look at the question that you've got in front of you for assessment, and you're going to write your own TEEEC paragraphs. Now, please be aware that it takes a while, especially when you first start writing essays. It takes a while to write those TEEEC paragraphs, so expect it to take a while. You need to think about what ideas you want to discuss in your essay, what sort of angle you're going to take with the question. You need to find the quotes that back up what you're saying and be able to identify the technique and what the technique is doing. And when you do that, it takes a bit of time. So it's really frustrating for teachers when students automatically go, I can't do it, I can't find anything. I want you to trust in your own opinion, trust in the fact that you can do this, follow the formula, and know that it's going to take a little while to go through the play and find what you want to say. But even though it might take you a while now, after doing a few essays, you're going to get quicker and quicker at doing this. And this is a really important time for you to spend learning how to write TEEEC paragraphs confidently. So go ahead and have a go doing it yourself.